a current channel, a zero-depth pool with spray nozzles and play features, plaza area, and the bathhouse. There will also be about 179 parking spaces to handle the daily parking demand. The complex, with parking included, maximizes the space allowed per the Spellerberg outdoor petition. To give you an idea of the size of the pool, it is roughly the size of Laurel Oaks, minus the green space and sand play area. We also have some 3D images to give you a feel of how the facility will look. This is an aerial view from Western Avenue looking west. You can see the bathhouse in the foreground with the pool and the VA in the background. Here's another shot of the bathhouse from ground level looking west. The bathhouse mimics the design of the bathhouse at Big Springs, our most recently built pool. This is a good shot of the zero-depth pool. You can also see the plaza area to the left and deck and grass area to the right. This is right after entering the facility through the bathhouse. This is a shot looking east towards Western Avenue. You can see the current channel to the left and the 3 25-meter lap lanes to the right. Just out of sight to the right are 2 water slides. Now look at the indoor aquatic facility. The site plan is essentially the same as the outdoor facility, with the only difference being the indoor facility is slightly larger due to the additional amenities being provided. We are proposing a 203 stall parking lot to handle the daily parking demands generated by the facility. Here's a look at the proposed floor plan for the facility. Working from the left, you can see an outdoor spray ground area and sun deck for the warmer times of the year. In addition to a warm water therapy pool, there are 2 water slides that run out on the deck. Next to that is a current channel. Also in this space are 3 25-meter lap lanes and a zero-depth pool with spray nozzles and interactive play features. There are also community rooms and a dry viewing area. Moving up and to the right, you can see a 50-meter by 25-yard pool. There will also be movable bulkheads to split the water body into 3 separate areas, which provides for a lot of programming flexibility. There are 2 1-meter diving boards and 1 3-meter board towards the far right. There's also seating for 500 off the deck. Now we have some 3D images to show you the different features. This is an aerial view from Western Avenue looking west towards the VA hospital. This is a closer view of the front door looking west from ground level. This is a shot of the recreational side of the building. In the foreground, you can see the zero-depth pool with 3 25-meter lap lanes immediately to the left. In the background, you can see the 2 water slides. There's also a lot of glass in the building to allow in natural light. This is from the far west side of the recreational area. You can see the therapy pool to the right and the current channel to the left. Out past the windows to the right, you can see the outdoor sun deck. This is a look from the outside of the building. To your left, you can see the outdoor spray ground, and further to the right, you can see another view of the sun deck. This is a shot of the 50-meter by 25-yard pool. The bulkheads are to one end, but this pool can be split into 3 different bodies of water. In the far left corner of the picture, you can see the diving boards. To the far right corner, you can see the elevated seating and office space.
So, how do the outdoor and indoor facilities compare? First, let's look at it from the usage point of view. An outdoor pool could be open up to 90 days out of the year, depending on weather. The indoor facility would be open 360 days per year. The outdoor pools are typically open 8 hours per day, while the projected indoor pool would be open for 15 hours per day. That equals 720 hours of availability for the outdoor pool and 5,400 available hours for the indoor pool on an annual basis. The Aquatic Facility Master Plan projects that the bather load capacity of the outdoor facility is 330, compared to 583 for the indoor facility. Based on an approximate turnover rate of 2.5, the daily bather load capacity is 831 for the outdoor facility and 1,520 for the indoor facility. Now, a couple numbers on cost. The estimated net cost per hour to operate the outdoor facility is $209, compared to $128 for an indoor facility. The estimated cost to build the outdoor facility is $7.5 million, while the cost to build the indoor facility is $19.4 million. We also wanted to compare the amenities in the concept plans. Both facilities will have zero-depth pools, lap lanes, water slides, a current channel, and outdoor spray features and sun decks. On top of that, the indoor concept also includes 3 diving boards, a therapy pool, and multi-purpose rooms. In addition, we would also have a 50-meter pool with 2 movable bulkheads that allows the pool to be divided into 3 bodies of water for programming flexibility.
I'm Mike Cooper, Director of Planning and Building Services for the City of Sioux Falls, and I'll be talking about parking and traffic impacts from the 2 proposed facilities. Another question that was raised during our Spellerberg neighborhood meetings was parking. The concept plans include parking lots sized according to projections found in the aquatic facility master plan. The outdoor facility concept shows a 179 stall parking lot, while the indoor concept shows a 203 stall parking lot. Our city traffic and engineering staff researched similar facilities in the region and found that the proposed parking lots for both facilities were adequate to meet the daily parking needs. City traffic engineering also analyzed the parking needs for potential swim meets that could occur if an indoor facility was built. They collected data from a 4-day swim meet at Frank Olson Park in 2013 and found that on average 250 parking spaces are needed on a daily basis during the swim meet. It also was believed to be the largest swim meet ever held in the state of South Dakota during that time. When looking at available parking, they identified 64 on-street parking spaces along 22nd and 26th Streets adjacent to the park. When factoring in these 64 parking spaces and the 203 available spaces within the park itself, that would actually exceed the demand for a swim meet without having to use neighborhood street parking. We would also not be using the VA hospital parking lots during a swim meet event. It's common that we would see typically 2 to 3 swim meets held annually for our facility. In addition to the parking, city traffic engineering also looked at what would be the projected traffic impacts that each facility would generate along Western Avenue compared to existing traffic flow. We found that traffic will not increase as a result of the indoor facility when compared to the existing outdoor pool because the traffic will be spread out over a longer period of time throughout the day. We did find that traffic could increase by about 100 cars per day with the new outdoor pool concept plan when compared to the current outdoor pool facility.
Hi, I'm Tracy Turback, the City Finance Director for the City of Sioux Falls. Now that you've heard about the 2 options and understand how the indoor and the outdoor facilities compare with each other, let's consider financing. As you saw earlier, the estimated cost for the outdoor facility is $7.5 million. The indoor facility estimated costs are $19.4 million. In the capital plan that the City Council adopted last fall, the outdoor facility is not considered. And so if the decision ultimately is made to move forward with an outdoor aquatics facility, the capital plan would need to be amended and the money would need to be appropriated by the City Council. Now that long-term capital plan that the Council did approve last fall does provide for an indoor aquatics facility. The plan provides funding of $6.4 million from available cash, with the balance to be funded by the sale of sales tax revenue bonds. 2 other key points to remember in regard to the indoor facility: the operating costs for that indoor aquatic facility have been included in the city's long-term financial forecasting models, and no tax increases will be needed to pay for the construction of the facility.
Thank you for allowing us to share this information with you today. If you have any questions, you can email us at spellerberg@siouxfalls.org.
take any public comments or questions.
I'm Bruce Danielson, and I just want to say good evening, that I'm a resident of Sioux Falls, and I'm here on behalf of Citizens for Integrity. I've been active in politics in many different issue and candidate campaigns for almost 50 years. As a group of us began to watch the issue campaigns build, we saw serious issues in the way the city election of 2014 was being managed by the city of Sioux Falls. We banded together to create a new organization, and I'm now chairman of the group I've just mentioned, Citizens for Integrity. The city of Sioux Falls is legally required to supply only a written form, simple, clear language of what a yes/no means and a no vote means. That's it, nothing more, nothing less. The 4 ballot measures have not been legally presented to the people who are expecting to vote in a few days. We want to let you know the people have been presented with unbalanced advocacy education videos and public pronouncements by city officials. And I wanted to make that clear before they start again tonight. And thank you.
As you heard in the presentation, somewhere along the line, the need for an indoor swimming facility for the swim teams got convoluted into a full-service indoor water aquatics center. The Save Spellerberg group has never, and we're not now opposed to an indoor swimming facility. At Tuesday night's council meeting, I suggested a plan, and part of it was displayed right there in their financing, a plan by where we could all come out winners. The people that want an indoor pool, and those of us who want to save the integrity of Spellerberg Park. We could have an indoor pool and the outdoor pool while we save you, the citizens of Sioux Falls, millions of dollars. At some point in that plan, there was at least $13 million that was going to be borrowed. By doing a little shuffling, which the city is capable of doing, we put that money back where it came from. They borrowed less money, and they financed an indoor swimming facility, which the swim team wants and needs, and we're not opposed to. We could start working together, and the swim team could have a wonderful facility instead of something that is less than desirable. We could expand on that, putting it in such a facility as the sports complex near the river for bike trails, the football, the soccer, the hockey, the ice hockey and the tennis teams. And there's already motels, a gas station going up, and other activities available, ease of access, and so on. Thank you. And if you are interested, I'll be in the back sometime afterwards.
Yes.
I live here on the south side of town, and I am in support of this indoor aquatics facility at Spellerberg, because as you described, I see it as a community facility. It is for all ages, it's for all populations and all swimming abilities. It is not a sports complex, it is not an athletic training complex. So therefore, I think it needs to be accessible by all community members, which Spellerberg Park is. So my question is, for my family or me as an individual, how much has it been proposed? How much would it cost, or is there a fee schedule associated with using an indoor facility?
The fee schedule ultimately would be approved by the city council. As we've talked about it going forward, we've kind of talked about keeping the prices along the same structure as what it is now. Right now, whatever it would cost either for adults or a family or a child to go for one season, which is basically the summer season, our thought going forward is that that would be the same price at the indoor facility, with the idea in mind that the indoor facility has 4 seasons: the summer, fall, winter, and spring. So per season, it would be similar prices.
So would that, I'm sorry, so would that price include, in the summer, if I wanted to purchase that pass in the summer, would it be, again, would that include indoor facility, Laurel Oaks, all of them, or would it be a city pass? Or city
Yeah, that's the way we did it at this point.
Okay.
I'm just a little confused, so what is the season pass now?
$70 for a family.
Okay, $70 for a family, so are you saying $70 per season for the family, is that how you're proposing that?
That's the way we would make it.
The child would be $15. That's
Along with her question, it didn't say how much it would cost the maintenance before a year. So $70 per pass, that's gonna cover that, or it's going to be?
No, the fee, if we proceeded with a fee structure like that, it would not cover the total cost of operating the facility for a year. But the cost of operating this as a facility per hour that it's open would be actually less than what the outdoor pool costs per hour. So when you look at what the payback is, for a citizen, you end up with an operating cost per hour that's open so many days that would actually be less than an hour. The overall cost would be more at the end of the year.
Yeah, Derek, I just know that I live in Bismarck, and I live in Fargo, and now Sioux Falls again. And I was surprised we didn't have an indoor pool for our people, young people, to take part in going to swim meets all over. I think Rec City has a big area for swim meets. And I know friends here in Sioux Falls, both have girls and boys that travel to Fargo or Minneapolis and Rec City, and they say it's amazing what they have and we don't have. It's time for Sioux Falls to get an indoor pool for these swim meets and for it to help our children move forward. And that actually is just like the ice hockey, the tennis. Now's the time for the swim meets, for swimming, indoor pools.
Hi, would you compare the relative annual operating deficit for a proposed outdoor replacement pool at Spellerberg versus the contrasting concept that was provided for that site?
That was addressed in the aquatic master plan.
Yes.
Estimates in that. I don't remember exactly what the numbers were for your time. You guys.
I'll find them and then we'll come back to that. How that sound?
Others? Yes.
My name is Tom Munster. I'm the chairman of the Veterans for the VA organization, and I noticed in the previous presentations there were two issues that were raised. One was that no parking at the VA would be used for this aquatic center. However, I understand that one of the initial plans that was put out by the city did target the parking at the VA for use by the aquatic center. So my first question is, what protections do you intend to put in place to ensure that the VA parking is not used by patrons of the aquatic center? My second question has to do with water therapy for veterans. I understand from the presentation that the facility is being proposed that it could be used for water therapy for veterans. I'm wondering if you've talked to the VA director about that and if they have endorsed your policy.
First question, could you restate that for me, please?
Well, I know in the presentation you said that there isn't enough parking at the facility, that there's going to have to be on-street parking. The city also targeted parking at the VA in one of their previous diagrams for this project. And now you're saying that you're not going to target the VA's parking or you're not going to use it. How are you going to protect veterans and their parking if there's not enough parking at the aquatic center? Are they going to park on the street? Are they going to park in the VA parking? How are you going to protect and ensure that veterans are not denied their parking?
Since initial concepts have been talked about, we've had the aquatic facilities master plan has been done, there's been further research, and so the plan has been refined. And so we believe that the daily usage at the facility is easily handled with parking that would be available on site. Keep in mind also that typically in this area of the country, when you talk about swim meets, there's 2 or 3 a year. When those happen, That adds to the parking that's needed. But again, as you saw in the presentation with the on-street parking that's available on the park side of the street, we believe that that's also adequate for those situations.
Even though the veterans parking is the closest available parking to the facility besides the limited spots that will be available in Spellberg Parks.
You know, there's walkways that go virtually from 22nd Street to 26th Street, and we believe there's adequate pedestrian walkways to accommodate folks.
So just to clarify, there is no protection. You haven't come up with a plan. You haven't decided how you're going to protect veterans parking. Is that correct?
We don't believe that there's a need to do that. If that situation came up, we would then identify that as an issue and we would deal with it.
The second part of my question was about.
Sure.
I think last presentation I also addressed this. We do have special events, meetings that are held each year for the numerous special events that happen in our park system. And depending on the size of the event, we do come up with parking plans for different events that take place in all of our parks. And so with those, we do work directly with the police department to ensure that we're not going to impede on citizens or have negative happenings that take place with parking. And so we would have a parking plan in place to ensure that it would not affect the VA parking.
You would have, and possibly, but what you're asking the city to do, the residents of Sioux Falls, is to vote in favor of a $20 million project that hasn't been thought out. There is no protection. You're telling me you have not developed a plan to protect the VA's parking.
So
There's not enough
VA
parking.
control its own lot? Have
Pardon
you
me?
ever tried to park there? Yeah. Yeah, the VA patrols their own lot. Nobody can park there. You get tickets. Yeah.
Again, I might just add that, you know, when we develop and construct recreational facilities, there's a lot of planning that does go into it. There's been a lot of planning that's gone into both concepts here. We feel very good that both concepts have adequate parking. From time to time, if there are issues that come up, and I'll use Jazz Fest as an issue, where that became so popular that there were instances where we had to develop some solution for the parking. We sat down with the event organizers and we came up with that plan. And that plan's been very successful. And we do that for all kinds of special events that happen in and throughout the city of the
I
park.
understand. But just to be clear, there's no plan firmly in place. You're saying that at some point it'd be developed in the future. The second question I had was you had suggested that water therapy would be available for veterans. Has the director of the VA endorsed that plan?
I've talked to them about the therapy plan, and I think it goes back to your original question about whether we were currently certified to be able to offer those programs and services. Obviously, we haven't built the facility. We don't know if we're building the facility. And so until at such time we identify whether or not we're building the facility, certainly our intention is to provide a therapy pool, as you saw in the concept plans, that would be certified and available for use for therapists that would like to be able to provide services, whether that be in a prescribed setting or whether it be in a recreational setting. Either way, the facility would meet all the criteria to be able to be eligible to be used by therapists who have the certifications and have the expertise to be able to offer that to, whether it be veterans, whether it be seniors, whether it be a kid that tore his ACL at a basketball game, whether it's a senior with a knee replacement or a hip replacement, whatever it might be. That is our intention, is to provide that and make that available to anybody that would be able to provide prescribed therapy in that therapy pool.
But Don, I appreciate that answer, but more specifically, it has not been endorsed by the director of the VA.
There's nothing to endorse at this point because we haven't decided whether or not we're building the pool at Spellberg. So I think it'd be premature to be able to identify that, yes, we're going to do this, because we haven't even decided through the election what ultimately is going to go on.
So more specifically, I think you're aware that the director of the VA has said that he could not and would not send veterans for medical grade water therapy at this facility, at the proposed indoor aquatic center.
As a physical therapist, you can't mandate your patients as a professional to go anywhere. However, if I was a veteran and there's a very nice therapy pool on the adjacent property, I'd be upset that I couldn't go and use this pool.
Well, I think anyone can swim, but my point is that the director of the VA, the person who's in charge of making decisions about water therapy treatment for veterans, has stated that they will not and cannot send veterans to a public indoor water therapy pool.
Now we got to keep on track here. Snowgates is next. If there's any questions, Don and Dave will entertain them back in this area. Excuse me. I'm Galen Huber. I'm the street fleet manager for the City of Sioux Falls Public Works. And over the last 4 years, I have operated the Snowgates. 3 years prior, I've actually tested them. And I have a 10-minute video, and then I'll take questions.
Thank you.
I'm Galen Huber, Street Fleet Manager for Public Works. Today I'd like to talk to you about 2 things. One is the ballot question on snowgates that you're going to see in April, and the other is how we went about over the last 3 winters testing, and then also the results of the snowgate tests that we did do. So let's start out with the ballot question. This is the wording that the city received along with the signatures on the initiative to implement snowgates. This is what you will see on the ballot in April. And just a brief explanation on what this means. If the voters approve this initiated measure, then the city would use snowgate devices to aid in snow removal program for streets within the city of Sioux Falls. A vote yes is for the use of snowgates in the city's snow removal program. A vote no is against the use of snowgates in the city snow removal program. So let's talk about how we went through and tested snowgates, and then we'll get into the results of those tests. First of all, what is a typical winter in Sioux Falls? The typical winter is approximately 43 inches of snow, which means I have to plow out the city approximately 5 times. So what is a snow alert then when I do declare a snow alert? A snow alert means that we go in and we plow every street within the city of Sioux Falls. There's approximately 3,000 lane miles within the city of Sioux Falls, and it takes just under 30 hours to plow out the city on an average basis. As you can see from this slide, this is the 3 winters that we actually tested snowgates, and you can see the first winter was a very typical winter for us, in which we had 6 snow alerts and we had 45.6 inches of snow. The other 2 winters were a lot less snow than what we normally would receive. We also tried to take a look at when we were using snowgates. We tried to spread it out throughout the entire city. We tried to go into mature areas of town where the streets are a little bit narrower. We also tried to go to the outer city limits of the city where the streets are a little bit wider and the lots are a little bit larger. We also tried to get different types of configuration of streets, hilly streets, streets with curves, flat streets. Also, we could get a good measure on how snowgates would work. And over the 3-year process, we basically tested 20% of the city streets with snowgates. So what did we consider when we were out using the snowgates? First of all, we wanted to know the snow amount per event, the type of snow. By that I mean if it's a wet snow or a dry snow, the total snow accumulation for the event, and then again we get into the street characteristics as far as narrow streets, wider streets, how wide the driveway is, the spacing between driveways, and then the type of equipment that we use as far as the snowgates themselves, and then the operator experience. One other thing that we took a look at was the private contractors. Private contractors provide 40% of our snow removal operation during a snow alert. And so we had to take a look at their coordination as far as shifting, communications, fueling, and their repair and maintenance. So what did we learn from snowgates? We found out that it does effectively reduce snow in driveways and intersections up to a certain amount of snow. Normally that point for us in Sioux Falls is right about 6 inches. Anything below 6 inches, it worked very effectively. Above 6 inches, the efficiency went down. Also the difference between wet snow and dry snow. Dry snow was, we were able to blade off with snowgates a lot easier than wet snow. Wet snow tended to hang up in the blade and it was harder for it to discharge away from the blade. And then again, cul-de-sacs are hard without snowgates, and with snowgates it added another challenge for us. The other thing that we also see was that streets will be narrow throughout the winter using snowgates.
We also seen that using our 6-wheel drive motor graders was essential to make sure that we were able to push the snow as close to the curb as we could. And then also the operator effectiveness improved greatly with experience. Each year that we tested, I used the same operators, and every year they became more efficient on how they were able to operate the snow gates. And then also the teamwork that's required with the contractors. We tested 2 different types of snow gates during this 3-year process, and the hinky snow gates performed the best. They allowed us to get to the curb the closest. They were engineered so they fit our moldboard better, and it allowed us to also clean the gutter pan better than with the other snow gate. What are the snow gate opportunities that you'll see? Snow gates do reduce snow in the driveways. Snow gates do reduce the snow in the intersections. As we go through an intersection, we'll close the gate and pull the snow all the way through instead of leaving a windrow and discharge it when we get on the other side. And then we did receive a lot of positive feedback from the public on snow gates. What are some of the risks that we may experience with snow gates? It's going to increase our time. We have to drive slower with snow gates in order to keep the snow in the blade. And there's also potential for more breakdowns because snow gates have hydraulic hoses and parts in them that can break down. So it could add to the delays. And then also the logistics of working with contractors and snow gates. Another one of the risks that we may experience is narrowing of the streets. What type of risk would this cause? Certainly our main goal is safety, and not only for the driving public, but also for the first responders out there. We want to make sure that the streets are wide enough so they can get their equipment through the streets, especially like fire trucks. The other thing it may do is it may cause us to eliminate on-street parking during the winter if the streets do get too narrow. It will cause us to have to do a lot more plowbacks because of narrow streets, and with drifting, the drifts will come out onto the driving lanes a lot quicker, which means we'll have to react to it. And some of the things that we're seeing right now, as we get snow melt, the inlets are plugged, and the water doesn't have any place for it to leave the street. And we're going to have to go out and open up those inlets to physically get the water to drain off the streets. So those are some of the risks that you may experience with narrowing streets. Some of the flexibilities that we may have to have with snow gates is limiting their use. We may have to limit their use if we receive a snow event of over 6 inches. Again, we want to make sure that the streets are clean and safe once we go through them. And we were experiencing situations with over 6 inches of snow that if there's so much snow going over the blade and around the blade, it didn't even look like we're plowing it. So we may have to limit it with more than 6 inches of snow. And also in streets where the snow is starting to narrow it, we may have to eliminate using snow gates on certain streets during the winter season. The test data has 2 concerns. One of them is that 2 of the 3 years were very mild winters, and we didn't get a lot of data from those 2 mild winters. And the actual financial results may vary based on winter conditions and identifiable variables within the winter. What did we consider as far as costs when we were looking at snow gates? We looked at the plowing costs, which includes fueling, labor, materials, and then the initial cost of purchasing the snow gates, and then thirdly, the cost of picking up the snow. What we found out from the data once we collected it as far as fuel consumption goes, depending on the type of snow, if we have a really dry snow, we had very little additional fuel consumption with snow gates. As we got heavier and wetter snow, the fuel consumption did increase with the use of snow gates. Operational time was showing that same type of curve. If we had dry snow, it wasn't taking us that much longer to do this entire city with snow gates versus the heavy wet snow when we had to go and plow the city out. It took longer. And then again, that associates along with the time. We can plow the city out normally in less than 30 hours. With snow gates, it's probably going to take us a little over 30 hours. What are the estimated costs for operating snow gates within the city? There's a one-time cost of purchasing the snow gates, and we estimate that we'll need 33 snow gates for $198,000. And then the annual cost that will go along with operating snow gates would be the fuel, the labor, the equipment costs, the contractors,
installation, maintenance, and replacement of snow gates, which amounts to about $325,000. And then one of the things that we seen the first winter when we had a very average winter of 46 inches, we actually had to go in and pick up snow on some residential streets that we normally don't pick up snow on. So estimating that we're going to have to go in and pick up some of these streets, we're putting a dollar amount of anywhere from $0 to $290,000 to do additional snow pickup. And this would be primarily around school zones to provide for the safety of children when they're being dropped off and when they're being picked up. So the total annual cost to operate snow gates within the city of Sioux Falls should range somewhere between $325,000 and $615,000 on a yearly basis. I hope this has helped you to understand how the operation of snow gates worked within the city of Sioux Falls, the data that we collected, and also the results. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact either Mark Potter, the Director of Public Works, or myself. Thank you.
Any questions? Yes.
From my understanding, using the snow gate, you would use it for less than 2 inches of snow. Is that correct?
Only when we call a snow alert. In a snow alert, it's not a black and white amount. If I have really dry snow and I get 3 inches of it, and when you dry it, packs down and it doesn't get slippery, I may not call a snow alert. I may call a snow alert at 1.9 inches if it's really wet, gets slippery, and I believe it's necessary to put out. So there's no defined black and white point at when I call a snow alert, but if I do not call a snow alert, I do not use snow gates. Correct. Because I don't go into residentials. I only stay on the emergency snow routes and the secondary school routes. And then what I'll do is I'll go around the schools where the drop-off zones are. That's where I'll stay to. Like today when we were supposed to get some snow, and it was supposed to be like a half an inch, I would have only been on the emergency routes, secondary routes, and the school drop-off sites.
So basically, you can only use it 2 to 6 inches.
When I call snow alert on up.
Yeah. And how often does that happen?
This year I had 3 snow alerts. I had one in December that was right at 6 inches, one in January that was almost 3 inches, and then one in February that was 2.2 inches, but the 2 days prior to that I had almost an inch of snow that fell on the ground, so I called a snow alert just to clean out the entire city. So I had 3 snow alerts. We budget for 6. Over the 3-year test data, we had 10 total for 3 years.
You mentioned 40% of the snowplow operators are private. Are they comfortable? Do they switch often, or are they pretty consistent as far as working with the city year in and year out? And so, will that be a factor in training them if these things are going to be something that we should consider getting? If we have 40% of the operators not really familiar with them?
I'm going to, after the election, if the citizens vote for snow gates, I'm going to have a meeting right after the election and bring in all my contractors. I've heard that some contractors don't care if we have snow gates or not. They're willing to work with it. Actually, a year ago, I had Merle and Royce, who's one of my contractors, put snow gates on their motor graders. They said if the citizens want them, they vote them in, they'll go ahead and put them on theirs. I've heard other contractors say that if snow gates are voted in, they don't want to have anything to do with snow gates. And so I got to figure out who will come in and work with me on there. And then we'll have to go through and logistically figure out how we're going to do this. If I get a contractor that says, I'll work with you, but I don't want them on my plow, then what I'll do is I'll mount them on city, but then I'll have to run a private contractor down the middle, and then I will run the gutter pan with the snow gates. That's I've been thinking through the process what to do. But yeah.
Have you checked these states? I live in Bismarck, and we have up there every grade. I mean, it's a smaller city, I know, but we got snow 4 or 5 inches, and they use a snow gate. And on the white streets, they go in the middle and then move them out, and then the streets are clean when they're done. I don't know if it looked at Bismarck or any other streets that use them, but I know they were great up there.
Yeah, I've talked to quite a few people around the country that had them. Those that have had them and don't use them anymore, those that are using them as a trial like we are, and then North Dakota, of course, who's had them probably the longest up there. I've talked to those guys quite a bit about what they see the opportunities are and what some of the risks are a little bit for us. So.
Did I misunderstand the video? Did it say after 6 inches you weren't even going to attempt to use them?
We will try to. There's a tipping point where I cannot, when I throw that gate down, physically can't keep the snow in the plow anymore. It starts pouring right over the top of the blade, and it comes around both sides of the gate and the moldboard on the center.
Oh, okay.
And so it pours around. And so when you drive through and you look back, it doesn't even look like it went through with the plow.
Okay.
It looks like a quick plow, that he didn't plow it at all. The first winter that we tried, and when I got to 46 inches, I actually had one snowstorm that was over 6 inches where I was experiencing that. I kept on using them because I wanted to test them, but it was at my tipping point. So North Dakota has told me it's going to be somewhere between 6 and 7 for you down there, and it depends a little bit on the snow. If it's really wet, heavy snow, it's hard to push. I mean, over the last 3 years I tested them, the snow has been fairly dry. I think I had a really wet March snowstorm. And I've had my operators actually canter their front wheels like this just to hold themselves, go down straight, especially if there's a little ice and we're trying to chew the ice off along with it. So it depends a little bit. I'm certainly going to try it. I'll find that point down the road, what that inch amount is. And if it's dry, I might go after it at 7. If it's really wet, I might have to stop at 6.
Just a quick question. We talked the other night about your current older gates, the Ironets. How many of those did you buy?
I have 2 Ironics and I have 4 Hinkies right now.
Oh, okay.
The Ironics, and one of the things about the Ironics, they're made in Canada. Nothing wrong with that manufacturer. It's just that the Hinkies is engineered a little bit better. When I open the gate of a Hinkie, it comes straight up, like this, and they go straight down. When an Ironics gate opens up, it comes up and goes like this. And so mailboxes, fire hydrants, trees, telephone pedestals, I had to back at least 2 foot off of the curb, even on the first snowstorm. Say it was November 5th and I get my first snowstorm, I'm out there blading, I'm 2 foot off the curb because when I open that gate up, I'm going to take off every mailbox that's set beside there if I try to do the gutter pan. In the picture you've seen of the Hinkie, I was running the gutter pan as close as I could with it. And part of the problem, when I talk about narrowing the streets, North Dakota tells me it's going to narrow streets, narrow streets, narrow streets. The reason for it, the art of pushing snow is you get enough speed so that when you're plowing, the snow basically rolls into the parking strip. That's the area that stores all my snow all winter long. With a snow gate, I can run over 10 miles an hour without a snow gate on a motor grader. I have to run about 5 to 7 miles an hour with a snow gate to keep the snow in the gate. And so when I lift the gate up and try to discharge it, it pushes straight out like this, it doesn't roll. And then when I drive by it, it falls down behind me. And so every snow, it keeps on doing that, and eventually I get the street a little bit narrower and a little bit narrower and a little bit narrower. And Jamestown, North Dakota told me there's going to be a point maybe where you get 50 inches of snow. You're going to have to either take parking off of the street in order to allow vehicles through, or even they've actually gone to making them two-way streets, temporarily one-way streets during the winter until the snow actually melts. So,
just one other question on that. Teresa Staley wanted me to ask about if you'd talk to the people at Hinkie about coming up and working with your drivers to do a training program, because they said they would do that as part of the purchase.
When we put out, the city of Sioux Falls has to abide by state law. We have to bid this out. There's two major manufacturers, and there may be more that want to bid the contract. Whoever gets the contract, we always build it into the bid that the manufacturer has to come up and put on a training session for us on the operation of the equipment, no matter what, if it's a sweeper or if it's a snow gate. So that's always.
Does anybody else beside the two make snow gates? You know, with the, if you put the bid in and you'd say that you want, vertical versus diagonal swing, would Ironix be able to do that?
They may engineer their snow gate to allow for a more vertical rise on their gate. I'm guessing they'll want to bid this, and I can't write anybody out of a bid. I have to make.
But if you found that this is a criteria that you want, is a vertical versus diagonal?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I take off enough mailboxes without me knocking them out on purpose. It's 10-2. I apologize. If anybody has any questions.
Just one quick one.
We went with the manufacturer on this 5 years. And the operational cost that I have in there actually builds that 5-year cost into it, so that $325,000 would include the purchase of snow gates after 5 years.
And if this passes and 5 years down the road you feel this is not worth it, are you help buy and replace these roads?
I will be required by ordinance to, because this is going to be voted in, it's become ordinance. I'll wait if there's any other questions.
Hello, I'm Mike Cooper, Director of Planning and Building Services for the City of Sioux Falls. Today I'll be talking about the referendum on commercial zoning at the corner of 85th Street and Minnesota Avenue. Last fall, the City Council passed an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls rezoning property at the southwest corner of 85th Street and Minnesota Avenue from agricultural to the planned commercial, office, and recreation conservation districts. The ballot will have a yes or no vote available. If you support the commercial zoning taking effect at 85th Street and Minnesota Avenue, a yes vote is in favor and a no vote is against. The area shown is the 39-acre site at 85th and Minnesota Avenue that was rezoned to the commercial, office, and recreation conservation districts. This is in the southwest corner of the intersection of those two streets. The two exhibits show the existing zoning on the left, which is agricultural, and the proposed zoning on the right, which again is a combination of office, commercial, and recreation conservation. At the time this zoning was presented to the City Council, a site plan was included showing the proposed south side Walmart along with 8 smaller lots for commercial or office development, as well as 3 stormwater drainage ponds. The zoning consideration was based in part on conformance with our comprehensive plan. This plan is the overall growth management plan for Sioux Falls development, extending up to the year 2035. The City Council adopted that plan in December of 2009. And the proposed zoning would be consistent with that plan, which shows this corner of 85th and Minnesota Avenue as a sub-regional employment center. An employment center size is determined by the type of streets as well as access points along those major streets. This shows the future development plan for Sioux Falls, including the roadways by type, as well as employment centers in the vicinity of 85th and Minnesota, which would be a sub-regional, as well as other smaller employment centers, which would be neighborhood or business park. A sub-regional employment center is intended to draw commerce not only from the city of Sioux Falls, but also from outside of the community. This type of employment center is typically located at the intersection of major arterial streets or adjacent to an interstate. And in this case, both 85th Street and Minnesota Avenue are major arterial roadways. Once again, the zoning exhibit shows the proposed zoning that was approved by the City Council that would include a combination of planned commercial, office, as well as recreation conservation. And finally, a reminder that the ballot will have a yes or no vote for this item. Do you support the commercial zoning taking effect at 85th Street and Minnesota Avenue? A yes vote is for the commercial zoning to take effect, and a no vote is against the commercial zoning taking effect. If you have any questions about this item, or if you would like additional information, you can contact the City Planning Office at 367-8888. All right, well, I am Mike Cooper still, and are there any questions on this ballot question? Yes?
I just think the biggest concern, and I don't live right on that area, but hearing on by the fact that it's not a matter whether or not it's zoning, it's what's being built there, the ND and the 24-hour sewer center. There's no way to distinguish between those two in this line, is there? If it's rezoned, Walmart goes there.
I think the question is, would the vote allow any, well, why don't you rephrase your question again so people can hear you?
Can you vote for rezoning this and not vote for Walmart? being quicker. Is that okay enough?
As we presented this, when this was presented to the city council, it was for a proposed Walmart. So if the zoning is upheld, then that could go there.
That will
Yes.
go there, yeah.
We'll allow that to happen. How's that?
That's a terrible answer. It will go there.
Well, I'm sure that's the intent, yes.
With the rezoning, could you ever vote for a commercial that is smaller? I mean, have they, or this is now that we're voting yes for a large commercial, like the size of a Walmart versus the smaller commercialized like a 69th Street and Minnesota over here, which we had thought, I think originally that, and again, I don't live right on that intersection either, but far enough away that the lights and traffic and all of that would be an issue for myself.
If the rezoning is approved, then it would allow a larger store such as Walmart to go there. Yes.
But if it was denied, then it would go back. I mean, someone else could sell that for a lower level commercial something.
Yeah, if the vote would be no, it would stay as agricultural. And so somebody would have to come back and start over with a new rezoning plan for whatever, yes, for the entire property that's now shown as commercial. The recreation, conservation, and office would still be in effect. Yes?
You say it would stay in agriculture if it is not approved?
Yes, if there's a no vote, it would be agricultural.
So somebody could farm it, anything else in there, right?
Yes.
So I'm just saying now, I drive that street quite often in my business, and I know there's some question about could there a stoplight be put in, because like, you know, they have a stoplight over in Louise at the Walmart there, you can turn all the traffic in all the time, there's a stoplight there. Now, isn't there, who would consider a stoplight and what else would traffic in the Walmart?
Yeah, with the plan that was presented at the time the rezoning was considered, there were plans for stoplights on 85th and Minnesota.
I think Walmart does a lot for our city, helps our city grow, whichever way we go. And we're going south a lot now, and live on the south side of town, in the Salt Cliff South, and by the stadium, Sioux Falls Stadium, and I'm 2 blocks out there, the other stream, but I don't go and say get out there. I mean, wherever people move, wherever an organization moves, and it's positive. I've seen Walmart in many places, and I know they help many, many people within the city, what they do. And I know people who work for Walmart are good people. I know personally, and I've seen how we can say, know this.
Other comments or questions? Yep.
Mike, I have a question. I don't know whether to ask this now or in the next segment, but if
You can ask it twice. See if I answer it the same way.
If Sioux Falls passes, how does this affect this Walmart going in?
It would still allow it to be built. Yes. That size store could still be built there.
And the converse, if Shape Places does not go through, but this rezoning does go through, how does that affect it?
Yeah, if the Shape Places, which is the next thing that we're going to talk about, does not go forward, and this does get approved, then there would be one more step of a conditional use permit that would go to the City Planning Commission, and then that could be appealed to the City Council.
So if Shape Places does not pass, then the neighbors and those people would have one more chance to speak in front of the City Council and be a part of that process?
Yeah, there would be another public hearing.
Right. But if Shape Places did go through, then they would be out of that process. They wouldn't have another chance to have a voice.
That's correct.
And the conditional use permit process really is regarding the size of the building that could go in there, among other things. Hours.
And I'll talk about that during the next.
Well, I think it's pertinent to this discussion too, though.
Sure. Yep.
They go hand in hand in under.
Because with the Shape Places, the new commercial zoning districts would have limitations on building size, and there would be different landscaping standards and buffer yard standards that would have. Yeah.
I have a question that maybe not relate to this, but what other areas of the southern part of the city are sold comparable to what is because we are growing south. There are a lot of commercial developments. There's new development on the east side. What areas are zone like this on the south side of the city?
Yeah, the closest ones now would be East 57th Street and Highway 11. And then on to the west of here, we're looking at another future major commercial development at what would be 85th and Tallgrass Avenue, which is a little closer to Interstate 29. And then in between Western and Minnesota, or excuse me, Western and Cliff, you would have smaller commercial developments as part of our future growth plan.
I just want to comment on the Walmart deal. I don't think anybody hates Walmart or doesn't want them to come in. We just don't want them to come in right here. There are other places that Walmart can go farther south, down by Harrisburg. We moved out here to be here. You know, we moved away from that stuff. And we realize it's coming our way, but, you know, that is a shock. Something that big in our residential neighborhood like that, where we want our kids to play and things like that.
And when you see cities of comparable sizes, when they put a new Walmart in, they put it in a place where there is acres of open space to allow people to choose whether they want to live next to a Walmart, such as the Walmart at 60th and Marion Road.
I think one important thing I would add to Dana's comment is I am a neighbor that lives in that neighborhood, and all of our homes except 12 of us were built prior to the 2009 date where the city made that a commercial area. So at that time, there was no commercial designation for that area. It was not planned to be commercial until after we were built there. 80% of the homes, all but 12 lots.
Let's go back here.
Yeah, I just have a question about the street traffic. What's the plans for 85th Street? Is the state still considering an exchange at 85th and the interstate? And when will all this be widened, and will it, I mean, is it in conjunction with the Walmart?
Well, the South Dakota Department of Transportation does have a project scheduled for next year to make improvements on Minnesota Avenue from 85th Street down to the Harrisburg corner.
Okay.
And that will happen irregardless of this decision. And then, depending on what development goes for at the intersection, we would schedule improvements to 85th Street going west of Minnesota Avenue. We also have a project this year to improve 85th Street east of Minnesota Avenue over to Cliff. A portion of it will be widened, and then another portion will be just a 2-lane asphalt as you get over towards Cliff Avenue.
It's only a matter of time till that becomes a major artillery street, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of our major street plan is 69th, 57th, and 85th, okay. Major east-west corridors.
You answered my
right.
question.
No, my understanding.
Let me go back here first.
It's my understanding with the long-term plan of Sioux Falls going out to 2035 that there are a number of factors that are considered when commercial development, where it's planned for moving ahead. And so what factors are considered there? And also, I mean, how long has this been in the public sphere as far as assessing this? How long has it been planned that this major intersection would have commercial development?
Well, again, I think the video showed that we did the 2035 plan in 2009, and that was an update of the 2015 plan. And so every time we update those long-range plans, we look at where the growth areas are going to be able to be served by city utilities. We look at the future roadway network, those major section line roads, and we look at what adjacent development is going to be have as far as access, because the land uses are typically now determined by access. If the access is at a quarter mile or a half a mile, that's going to have an impact on what kind of land use is going to be appropriate for those major intersections. Let's go back here.
Mike, could you explain for folks what the compatibility matrix is and why there's 2 offices on the northwest portion of that development?
Sure. The compatibility is looking at land uses that are adjacent to each other or across from each other. And we have a matrix that we put together. And so as this came forward, it started out with 1 lot being zoned office, and through the discussions of Planning Commission and City Council, there were 2 lots that were shown as office. in order to provide more of a buffer to the residential development on the north side of 85th.
Just to follow up that.
Sure.
The story before that happened was going essentially from single-family residential in the neighborhood to the development, and that score was highly incompatible, correct? The lowest level, which would be a recommend do not go. But now that it's office, that's not the case, is that correct?
Yeah, office has a better compatible rating than commercial.
Just to clarify, the reason why I'm asking that is that's been the issue all along, is people have tried to portray the people in our neighborhood and this part of town that was over proposed at 69 as the anti-Walmart crew, and the gentleman back there, he's a Walmart spokesperson. We haven't been trying to run Walmart under the bus. I mean, people in Sioux Falls shop at Walmart. I've shopped at Walmart. It's the size of the store and its proximity to single-family residential, and the compatibility matrix says when you're going from single-family residential and then you go straight to C4 commercial, which is what this would be, it's highly incompatible, so you don't build. And what we've said all along is we don't believe that we should be thrown to the bus and we ignore the compatibility matrix for one user, Walmart, to come to our community. There's plenty of other places in the south side of Sioux Falls. To the gentleman's point, the city is definitely growing to the south, but it's also growing to the east, to the north, to the west. That's why there's a new store out on the west side of town. And nobody objected to that store for a reason, because it's a full half mile from the closest single-family residential neighborhood to that intersection. And so it's been unfortunate because I've seen so many people be divided in Sioux Falls saying, you people are holding up development and, you know, Walmart's great for Sioux Falls. It sure is, but it's the right user in the right place. And it's sort of the pig in the parlor argument. And so we've said, you can move the flagpole, you can put pretty trees in there that will take 25 years to look like they do in the picture that Walmart's sending. It's not going to happen. So put it where it makes sense, like it does in the northwest side, satisfy the compatibility matrix, and that's why I asked Mr. Cooper that. And Mike has been wonderful to work with, and he's been very helpful, but that's always been my big question mark, is those two offices. It's not enough buffer, it's not enough transition. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I just have two questions. One is actually kind of a follow-up to the Walmart spokesperson, I don't know where he went, about the 2035 plan. You know, that 2035 plan did make that a sub-regional employment center, and we all recognize that. But as Aaron pointed out, the 2035 plan did not come into being until December 7th of 2009. 80% of the homes in that neighborhood were built prior to the 2035 plan coming into being. And so it is not that, you know, we knew what we were getting into. That is not the case. My second question for Mr. Cooper is, you know, at the meetings we heard that there was some 27 road improvements that needed to be made. I guess I'm curious, you know, when all the improvements are going to be made, how much it's going to cost, and who's paying for them.
I don't have the answer as far as the cost estimate, but the road improvements would be completed prior to the store being opened.
All 27?
I don't remember 27 of them, but I'll have to go back and check that, and I can do that. But the 85th Street and the Minnesota Avenue improvements would be completed along with the segments.
Well, for example, how much does it cost to put up a stoplight? You know, like say at 85th in Minnesota, how much you
I don't
want
have
to
that information, but I can find out for the next time.
There are some infrastructure improvements.
Can you tell us what's it?
It's about 130,000.
Okay.
Just for what?
Just for one signal.
Okay,
thanks. In Minnesota, we are planning to work with the DOT. We're going to signalize that this year regardless, because it meets warrants.
That would be the first one.
We're planning to signalize that intersection this summer regardless of what happens.
Do you remember how many improvements? Was it 27?
I'd have to go through it exactly there. I don't have it exactly.
We'll have to look at that one. Let's go over here.
Mike, I appreciate your pulling us back to the big picture and how the different categories that you were talking about for your future development of the city. I didn't hear you mention quality of life as one of your criteria that you use for planning the expansion of the city. Is that in there? Did you just skip it, or
can you be more specific what you're asking?
Yeah. the quality of the existing residential, business, mixed residential, or whatever, is that all part of it too, or is it just roads and commercial development, which is pretty much what you said?
So we do look at adjacent development, we look at future land use plans, whether it's going to be residential, or a school or a park. So yeah, we do look at that as well.
Okay.
And it's not just roads and utilities. Okay, we move 710, so we have to go to the next one. This is on the shade places of the ordinance.
Hello, I'm Jeff Schmidt with the City of Sioux Falls. I'd like to introduce you to one of the ballot items that's coming up in April. This is the ballot item that's included in regards to the zoning ordinance for the April 8th election. What is Shade Places? Shade Places is the first major update of the existing 1983 zoning ordinance. This was approved by City Council in March of 2013 with a vote of 7-0. The proposed ordinance that is going forward in April develops the places that we have in the City of Sioux Falls, where specific places are located, such as where you live, work, shop, or go to school, how places are designed, how tall they are, how far away they are, and what the places should look like. The lighting, the parking, the trees, the signage. The city attorney's explanation of Shade Places says that a vote yes is for Shade Places to take effect, a vote no is against Shade Places taking effect. And this is how the ballot will be in April. Shade Places does not affect the Southside Walmart. The Shade Places zoning ordinance and commercial decisions at 85th and Minnesota are two separate and distinct issues. Whether Shade Places is in effect or not, a large commercial store could still be built at 85th and Minnesota Avenue. If the 1983 zoning ordinance remains in effect, the existing ordinance and the standards will be enforced. In regards to that, the single-family districts allow a variety of land uses. Older residential lots need a 50-foot frontage in order to have construction on them. There are only 2 fence options, and all commercial buildings belong to one commercial zoning district, called the C4 Planned Commercial District. If Shade Places takes effect, the new ordinance states these standards. The new ordinance has a separation distance from residential, and the Shade Places has zoning matter. Shade Places states the zoning all on one page. There are sheets like this that show what the overlay districts are, what the requirements are, what the setbacks are, and they show it in one page. There are separation distances from single family. The standardized distances that are used in regards to residential districts. These are just some of the examples in Shade Places. Full-service restaurants have to be 250 feet away from residential land uses. Halfway houses have to be 1,000 feet away, and adult uses have to be 1,000 feet away. This is not a conditional use. There are separation distances that are required in Shade Places. Saying that zoning matters in Shade Places. The decision-making process did not change between the existing ordinance and the proposed ordinance. The public decisions are made when zoning is decided. For example, uses are decided when the area is zoned. This is still being done at Planning Commission and City Council for rezonings. However, what gets confusing are uses are designed after zoning. So again, if you think about zoning matters, that's the upfront process. Uses are decided when the area is zoned. For example, again, on the left-hand side you can see the existing ordinance, and on the right-hand side you can see the proposed Shade Places. The ordinance has not changed. You're still required, if you're rezoning property, to post signs on the property. You still have to notify people within 300 feet, and there's still advertisement in the public paper prior to that public hearing. Also in Shade Places, there are 5 or 6 different significant changes that we'll highlight. Shade Places makes single family. That allows construction on older residential lots. There are more fence options. Shade Places promotes more than one commercial area, requires consistent landscaping areas, and Shade Places assists with this ever-changing market. Single family means single family. The existing ordinance allows twin homes, assisted living centers, daycare centers, middle schools, group homes, and nursing homes, all in a residential single-family district. Shaped places would not allow these uses in a residential single-family district. If those uses would be requested, that land would have to be rezoned and have to have public hearings. Construction on older lots. In regards to the historic preservation areas, there's going to be a district in Shaped Places called Residential Historic Preservation. And all primary and accessory buildings would have to maintain the same design for that district. Also, the existing ordinance requires 50-foot lots. Now, with Shaped Places, they support development within the core by allowing the construction on the existing 44-foot lots. There's more backyard fence options. The existing ordinance allows a 6-foot tall fence that has to be 10 foot back from the property line, or a 4-foot tall fence at the property line. Shaped Places allows those same two options, a 6-foot fence and a 4-foot fence, plus a 5-foot tall fence, 5 foot back, staggered fences, columns on fences, and capped fences. There's additional commercial options. The existing ordinance has all the commercial within a C4 planned commercial district. However, the one thing with that is if you're doing a commercial district that has greater than 1 acre or more than 15,000 square feet, you have to go through a conditional use permit. With Shaped Places, there's standards for commercial districts by size and again by impact. So a C1 district, you could only build up to 4,000 square feet. A C2 district, you could only go up to 25,000 square feet. A C3 district, you could only go up to 75,000 square feet. And then the C4 district under Shaped Places would be unlimited. Required buffer yards. The buffer is the landscape area when commercial or office is adjacent to residential. The existing ordinance does not have buffer yards. With Shaped Places, there's a requirement that the buffer increases as the development increases. For example, if there's a large commercial development, you may need to have a 30-foot and a 4-foot berm with 40 units, or if there's even more commercial development or office, it could be a 45-foot buffer yard with a 6-foot berm. Again, these are standard requirements within Shaped Places. Now we have a changing market in regards to the city of Sioux Falls in this area. The existing ordinance has 270 different planned development districts, which are zoning classifications throughout the city of Sioux Falls. Shaped Places would allow an option of mixed use or live-work districts. Mixed use is having the ability on a zoning classification to maybe have an office building above a residential area, or live work is having in one area the ability to live and work in one zoning area. Any questions and answers that the public may have, feel free to contact the City of Sioux Falls Planning Office at the city's website at siouxfalls.org. We have information on there in regards to the meetings that were led up to putting Shaped Places together. There's information in regards to the ordinance itself. There's images on there, there's examples on there, and there's background data, all in regards to Shaped Places and the effective zoning ordinance. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about the City of Sioux Falls and the zoning ordinance. If you have any questions or need additional information, please don't hesitate to call. Our information is here on this slide presentation about the ballot information, and also feel free to contact Jeff Schmidt at the city's Planning and Building Services Office, 367-8891. Again, thank you.
Okay, we have till 7:30, so questions, comments? Yes.
What was the catalyst for Shaped Places? I just think the council voted unanimously for it.
When we went through the development of the 2035 plan, it started out with a lot of public input and meetings and study groups. And what we heard, in addition to needing to update the growth management plan, is that there's a number of ways that our current zoning ordinance could be improved. And the big one that I know is probably generating the most interest is the conditional uses versus the zoning. Under the current ordinance, let's just talk about commercial, because that's the one that is most relevant to this area. Now, when a 39-acre parcel is zoned commercial, there's a long list of things that could go in there. There's permitted uses, there's permitted special uses, there's conditional uses. So we really don't know what's going to happen with that property because there's such a number of things that could go in. So the recommendation was to come up with new commercial zoning districts that are more specific as far as building size, so that at the time the property is zoned, we all have a better idea of what that development is going to look like, rather than waiting until later on and then having the public debate. So that was one thing. The second thing that we heard is that historically, as we've gone through these conditional uses, typically what we do is we get a building plan. It shows the building outline, it shows the parking lot, it shows the landscaping, the signage, and the lighting. And so we said, well, let's just put those standards right into the ordinance itself. And so that's what we have tried to do with shaped places. So again, at the time the property is considered to be rezoned, we have a better idea of what's going to go on there. And if it is rezoned, there's new standards that it has to meet. And plus, with shaped places, we can actually put conditions on the rezoning. So that was a big leap from what the past history has been. And there's a lot of other changes, but that's, I would say, one of the major changes. Yes?
I do agree that loss of that conditional use for some of that commercial is obviously a big concern. And like you said, the council did pass it at that time, but since then, Michelle Urbanbach has spoken out and said that she would like to instill back some of those conditional uses. You know, the chamber and their approval of it also said that they'd like to see those conditional uses kept with that. Is that ever something that would happen? Or I just think as citizens, if you lose that right of your voice, it's very easy to lose that, and it's going to be very hard to get that back. And that's something that is, I think would definitely make it so that why wouldn't they stop this vote, and why wouldn't we adjust that to put those conditional uses in before we pass it?
Well, we can't stop the vote, but to answer your question, as with any ordinance, and I was asked this Monday night as well, and I was asked when it was being reviewed by the Chamber Board, any ordinance can be amended or can be considered for amendments. And one this comprehensive, it's over 270 pages. Obviously, there would be a process that a group or individuals or organization, if there was specific proposals for amendments, they could come back and go through the process. So, yes, that's certainly an option. Just like any other ordinance that we adopt within the city.
Just really caution everybody, because I think the loss of your voice is very easy and quick with a yes vote, and to get that back someday might be very, very hard. So, there's no guarantee of an amendment either.
Yeah,
a blind trust that we would have, I guess.
It was hard to put everything in a short video, but
I'm sure it was.
One of the things that we can provide to people is a sheet that says, I'm hoping I'm not being advocates, but I think this is factual. It says, where did all the 206 conditional uses go with shaped places? And we've kind of mapped out where they went, and so we can certainly make that available to people if they're interested in more detail.
With that 85th of Minnesota, if shaped places would be passed, that neighborhood would not have a voice or say to talk about hours, to talk about size, and so I think that is a big negative against shaped places.
There have been a number of legal challenges with, in certain cases of putting conditions on property. We talked a lot about the hours of operation. There was a decision made not to address that with this rezoning or even with shaped places. So there's things like that we would have to look at as well in the future. I'll come back to you. Go ahead.
Along with the shaped places, there's some built-in that are good. The smaller the lot, you can't put an oversized building in a small acreage. So, it sounds like a lot's just looking at the big acreages, but there's some good things in about a smaller commercial area too. That protects us, our quality of life. Right?
I would agree with that. Go ahead.
I just had a clarification question for you, Mike. When you said the current, did you say 206 or 260? I couldn't quite hear you.
206.
That's what I thought you said. When you said where have they all gone, so are you of the opinion then, Mike, that they've all gone down some way filtered to the remaining 8? Is that what your statement is saying, or just some clarification if you could give me that?
In the current ordinance, we have a lot of conditional uses. With shaped places, we've changed those into other segments. In some cases, they've been put into the new zoning district categories as allowed uses. Again, to be more specific up front. In some cases, they've been changed to what we call permitted special uses, so that they have to meet those conditions, otherwise it would be a conditional use. So there's a lot of things that we've looked at through this public input process, the study groups, and again, looking at historically, what have been the major types of conditional uses that we've looked at, and what have been the major issues, primarily with landscaping and setbacks, is probably the number one thing that we've considered when we've done those conditional uses. And that's why we've tried to amend with shaped places more of those standards in the ordinance across the board, as was shown in the video. Yes?
Under the current zoning ordinance, how big of a building can you build without seeking a conditional use permit?
Yeah, in the C4 planned commercial, it's up to 15,000 square feet.
15,000?
Or 1 acre.
Okay.
Yes.
And under shaped places, if it's zone C4, no conditional use permit, and you can build a building of unlimited size. Is that right?
Yes. And shaped places has 4 zoning districts for commercial.
Then
1, 2, 3, 4.
One other quick question. The current zoning ordinance was adopted back in 1983. Is that right?
Yeah, it replaced the 1970 zoning
Okay.
ordinance.
How many times from 1983 until, say, 2013 has that zoning ordinance been amended?
Yeah, it's been amended through rezonings many, many times.
Many, many times.
The text has been amended. I think over the years we've looked at mobile home parks, we've looked at landscaping, signage. As things come forward, again, as I mentioned earlier, if there's a specific issue that's brought up to us that says, you know, the ordinance really doesn't address that very well, or maybe it doesn't address it at all, let's take a look at putting in some standards. That's what we've done over the years.
So if Shaped Places doesn't get adopted, it's not like we're operating for the next however many years under a zoning ordinance that's 30 years old. We're operating under a zoning ordinance that was first implemented 30 years ago, but that has been continuously amended since then. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, I mean,
Is that the same zoning rights we used last year? We had record building, residential and commercial. That's the same.
yeah, I mean, we're always going to have some type of a zoning ordinance. But again, starting back in 2009, we heard a lot from the community that it really is time to update it and incorporate some of these new ideas.
And how long would it take, for example, if Shaped Places did not pass and, you know, the city said, okay, what did we do wrong in Shaped Places that we need to fix? Could you fix that within a matter of months? Say there was 5 things. Say the citizens said, we want more input on this, this, and this. Oh, and we accidentally rezoned these few places. I mean, you can fix that within a matter of months, get a new zoning ordinance. I mean, you don't have to start from scratch. Is that right?
Yeah, again, any ordinance can be amended.
Right.
State law says that if this fails, we can't bring back the exact same ordinance for 1 year.
Okay. But say you make a change to this 270-page document, you can bring it back next month.
That's what we would have to look at. Is one sentence enough that it still complies with the law? So, yeah, that's one of those legal questions that we'll have to get into in more detail. Okay, we have 1 minute. Anybody want the last comment? Go ahead.
Unless anyone else does. Well, so basically, things are going to be zoned in 4 commercial departments, depending on the size of the building that can go in, right?
And so basically, if you want to move somewhere within the city, you're going to know ahead of time, well, do I feel comfortable living next to a flower shop that's going to be small? Or do I feel comfortable living next to a Target? So it's going to take away some of that mystery of if it's zone commercial, you don't know if you're going to get a really big store or a small coffee shop or, you know, small.
By our last presentation, that's not going to be true.
Can we have
Yeah, with shaped places with the 4 new commercial zoning districts. Again, as the video said, there would be maximum building sizes with each one of those. So at the time the property is rezoned, that would have to be presented, and we can put conditions on the rezoning. All right, well, it's officially 7:30, so I don't break the rules, thank you very much for